All right. Ira's got some music coming in again. Awesome.
So it's
Can
kind of like
everybody hear that out there? Can they hear it?
calming and fun. Yeah, they can hear it. Trust me.
They can hear it. Yes. they
My
can.
wife is upstairs saying, "Turn that shit off."
Oh, awesome. Well, glad to see everyone here again at our Exit Your Way Business Roundtable. Today we're going to talk about something that's going to be, well, we'll see.
One and done. Get it out of our systems. This is
Yeah,
it.
get it out of our systems. I mean, it's been boiling up in a lot of us, and I think it's time for us to be, hopefully, be good examples here. We'll bring some people to stage when it's appropriate, and get some more comments going. But let's start out and get hitting people in the chat.
Just closing my door.
What's that?
My wife just came down and closed my door.
So
I'd like to say that never happens here.
yeah. Andrew's gonna.
I've seen Andrew.
Yeah. I'm on the very opposite side.
My door is off camera, so she comes in and she gives me stink eye.
Yeah. It's like, my gosh, you're loud. Am I loud? No.
And I'm always on camera.
Yeah. So I see the chats rolling already. That's good. Get out there. If you're not connected, do the LinkedIn thing. Get your link out there. If you're new, introduce yourself. Do those kind of things. Any thoughts before we get started, guys?
Yeah, Joe, the finance guy, wants to know where Andrew's golf club is and if he's going to swing it. We were talking about that yesterday.
He's always got it. He's always got it. Always got it.
Always got it. If you've been on it more than once.
Trying to fix that slice.
Yeah.
An old friend.
The best way for me to fix the slice is to eat the sandwich.
Yeah. Sure.
Probably good advice.
Well, I hope everyone is, enjoying this political season as little as I. And I don't really, this is not a political debate this morning. I just think that it's telling in what we're going to be talking about today. And when we talk about embracing diversity, it might, go ahead, Ira.
I was going to say, it's not politics at all.
No, it's not politics at all.
Did you guys see Andrew's head? Just, you got to look. Anyway.
What?
We're already starting this off bad.
What?
The underlying issue is that instead of accepting people and embracing the diversity, which is the title of the show, right? This meeting, it's about clinging to a position, and everybody who has the opposite position of you on that one topic is your enemy.
Yeah.
I will say something that probably is a little controversial. When I saw, as the world did, that Trump had COVID, in my feed, I saw a lot of people saying, "Good, I hope he dies." And they weren't even joking. And I'm like, that is, to me, insane, right? So just because somebody is the opposite of you politically or your position thinking, they shouldn't be your enemy. Yeah. I don't understand that. And I'll bet you in this room we're more rational, and so we're all going to agree on that. I don't think anybody's going to go, "Oh, I hope my enemies die." That's not a normal rational thought. But you see it in social media feeds a lot.
Well, yeah, and I think for us, the people in this group, and I think you're absolutely right, Ira, that we know there's diversity and we have to embrace it, and we work through these, and we work with it all the time. And I really think that what I was hoping today that we could do was to talk about how do we be a better example, better ourselves tomorrow, be better than we were today at this. And how do we be a good example of the people around us? Because it starts with us. It starts with us being a good example. It's a good example for ourselves, good example for our family, good example for our circle of influence. And it really does, because because 80% of the people in the United States want, and in the world, you just talk anywhere, want to be able to live harmoniously with people and want to be able to discuss things rationally and do it. I just want to be able to talk today about some of the things that we can do that if we find somebody that has a different opinion than us, rather than dismissing it and going, they're stupid, or like you said, Ira, they're my enemy. How do we really open-mindedly embrace that opinion, not agreeing with it, not thinking it's good, not thinking it's bad, just understanding it?
Yeah. Well, I can give
I think you're setting an example, Damon. I think you're doing it, like just by doing this.
Yeah.
First place, right? Get it out, talk about it. It's not the elephant in the room, right? We talked about biases, in previous discussion as well, right? Which is kind of where it all starts. And we all came, we had a great discussion about that and talk about that. Yeah, we all have biases. That's just it, right? So let's look at what we're biased towards and then, embrace that, right? Or, so it's only ourselves can answer that kind of question.
Yeah. So
I think part of the answer is you need to hang out on Professor Pete's stress relief page.
Yeah.
Go there and chill the hell out. You know what I mean? Like if you're amped up all the time, then you need to back off on anything, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
None of this stuff is life and death.
That's a great point. And a lot of it is we are so amped up. Now let's talk about a few things that have intensified this, right? We all got stuck at home with COVID, all of us.
Right.
So lost jobs changing, stuck with our kids. So that first of all created stress, and Dr. Elliott explained that last week really well, I believe. And so we have that underlying thing. Then we go, okay, we're shutting down the businesses. So now we can't leave our homes. We can't do that. And now that as they open up, we got to do masks. And some people agree on masks. Some people don't agree on masks. Now, these are all things.
We could talk. Okay, forget politics. You guys just stop it with the politics because this isn't an R versus a D.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's making a fight. We could talk about masks. It's a microcosm that perfectly explains how all this thing works. You guys are going to say, of course, wear masks. And I'm going to tell you that something that's going to rock your world. Okay, I'm going to give you an analogy because I love to teach by pictures. Your homemade mask. Look, I got one right here. It's beautiful. Look at this. Professor Pete's going to love it. Okay. Oh, it's beautiful, baby. Now,
readers,
this is aesthetically pleasing to my eye. And I can walk into any building, including a hospital, with this on, and it does 100% nothing to stop you from getting COVID or me from spreading COVID. You want to know why? Because the microorganism is so small, it passes through this. You want to know an apt analogy for this? It'll help you. The COVID-19 microorganism, the micron size is so small. It's like trying to contain bumblebees with a barbed wire fence. Now, the barbed wire fence does contain some things. If you have cattle and horses and things like that, it works great. And so does this for things like dust and pollen and some of the things that you would get from plant seeds. The microorganisms, they're larger, and this would catch it. But if I walk into any restaurant, school, I can send my kids to school. I can go, like I said, my wife had a concussion. We went to the emergency room. Guess what? Most people were wearing a cloth mask. I happen to have an N95 mask because I understand that this is like, it makes me feel good, but it doesn't actually do anything.
Well, and I think this is a great example because I take it from a different approach on this. I really don't give a shit if the mask helps or not, because if it makes people, if it helps some,
feel better. Yeah.
It makes people feel better because I don't care. I mean, I care. Obviously I care. But it's like, if that's what I'm supposed to do and make other people feel well, I'm not going to jump up and say, I don't believe in a mask and it's not that big a deal. We make things like this into a big deal. I just don't think, I think that we get wrapped up in these issues, right? And yes, there are some things when we look at what's important and not what's important in our life, if it's not going to affect you, it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to, like, okay, let's let it go.
This is the point of it, though. This is why I bring it up. People will fight. I mean, physically fight, and they have fought. It's been all people will fight over a mask, and
But is it the mask?
If you think all the way through this, like I just said, the mask that you're wearing, that most people are wearing, and let's not even talk about when's the last time they cleaned it, because I'm wearing an N95 or a cloth mask. If you have to clean it or they get contaminated. You realize that, right?
Yeah.
So if you've been wearing the same mask for 6 months, guess what? You're just spreading dirty air, and you're actually inhaling dirty air, which you could make yourself sick. Anyways, so there's all kinds of science behind it. I'm a nerd, I know, but the fact you
pulling back the onion, like we do,
you are you're appeasing yourself, you're appeasing the crowd, but are you actually helping medically? No, you actually could be causing more harm than you're doing good. But again, people will fight if you're not wearing a mask. Some people are pro-mask, they'll fight. And some other people have decided for whatever reason they don't want any mask, which is insane. So that's my opinion. But it's got to be a clean mask. It's got to be an N95 mask, right? So it's got to be the right type of mask. But anyways, people will fight to the death to not wear a mask. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that's not a R or a D thing. That's something else. But
it's not the masks, right? I mean, there's lots of things to fight over. This is just one of them, and it's
right. It's just an example that we didn't have to talk about.
So let's talk about this a little bit. What are some of the things that you can do when you're walking up to somebody and you start talking to them? You go, okay, so you don't believe in masks? What's going on? Why? I mean, is that what we need to do here? The thing that I come back to is that we've all been amped up. We've been amped up because of the political crap that we see. We've been amped up because the people that make money. Now remember this, they make money if we are influenced one way or the other. Don't forget that the social media that put us all together on this kind of thing is actually influencing people one way or the other if we're not careful about that. And we're being influenced and spun up to the point that we can't talk about things anymore. And if you go back, and I haven't done it recently, but I can remember debates 20 years ago between political candidates. They actually talked about something that they believed in, rather than the other side being dumb and no, you're dumb, and no, you're dumb, and no, you're dumb. That's all we hear. We have to be the ones that can go, okay, what is it about this that really gets you? I mean, I would like to be able to understand how I could walk up to somebody that's very passionate about something. Take Black Lives Matter, right? If you look at it, I could walk up to somebody that's very passionate about Black Lives Matter, and they may look at me and say, you're the very problem.
Oh, they will.
So
a lot of them.
So how can I embrace this enough and be good enough as a person to talk to them and go, why is it like this? Why is it like this? Why do we feel that it's this divisive? What do we need to do to work? I don't know. I just, and that's why I'm hoping that I think, what do you guys think? I'm going to bring Con up too, because I know Con's got some things to say about this. And I want us to learn some things, and maybe Pete, if Pete's got some things, it's like we got to figure out how we can be better examples. Because if we don't, our kids.
I want to talk about one thing. So it's on the political side of it, but it's a suggestion. I read a book a long time ago. It was about 15 years ago now. I read a book, and it was called Every Man's Battle. And what I liked about the book is it made me think about my mind from the perspective of a consumer. The media that I was consuming was affecting my thoughts. It was affecting the way I think. It was affecting my attitude. It was affecting pretty much my whole existence. And I never really considered that before. So like if I was watching a lot of politically charged stuff, and I skew conservative, if you guys can't tell, right? So listening to Rush Limbaugh, listening to Sean Hannity before he lost his mind. Anyways, a lot of, some of the other guys that aren't even on the radio and the TV anymore because, of their age or their conservative views, whatever. But that's what I was listening to all day long because I'm an outside salesman, business to business salesman. I was in my car listening to the AM radio, and then I would come home and watch Fox News and I would just be so pissed off at the liberals because of what I was consuming. So in the book, he doesn't talk about it from conservative points of view. He's actually talking about it from like sexually charged things and stuff with like maybe a lot of nastiness in it. But I took that and I applied it across to my political stuff. But then at that point, I started to spend half my time digesting the other side's media, like CNN and NBC and listening to NPR and some of that stuff that didn't even exist back then. But anyways, right, to get a more balanced perspective. And what did that do for me? Oh my gosh, it cooled me down. I wasn't as supercharged. And I started to understand that the liberals aren't just stupid. They're not evil. They're actually smart people with real ideas who have real goals and want to accomplish things. And then through it, what I ultimately learned was this is really ultimately about management styles, right? You guys believe in this type of management. We believe in this type of management. We're really, you said it earlier, Damon, 80% of the global population, wherever you got that number from, and whatever it actually is, we want to live in peace and harmony. We all pretty much want the same things, just how are we going to get there? And so because I started to do that and consume media in a different way, and sometimes the answer is just turn the damn thing off and get away from it, right? Which is why I suggest going to hang out with Professor Pete, his stress relief tips, because he'll tell you that. Get out in nature, take a hike, breathe deeply. I mean, all these tips, and they help you. None of them are watch more news, right? So anyways, consuming the media differently helped me for that, because it helped me to get a bigger perspective, you know what I mean, than just the opinion that hypercharged what I already believed. It was kind of like when you only hang out with people who tell you yes all the time. They never challenge your thinking. They never share new ideas because they have to just tell you you're the best and you're awesome and you're the smartest person in the room, which I always say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get in a different room, right? Yeah. So I think that's part of all this.
100%. And the scary thing about that, Ira, is I was talking, and then it's Coach Constern. I was talking to a software guy yesterday, and he explained to me, we just briefly touched on this, and he said, the scary thing is, I was talking to a big data company a few years ago, and they were explaining to us how well they can predict what you are going to do in 2 weeks. He said, or 2 or 3 weeks. He said, I can tell you're going to buy a car in 2 or 3 weeks. And he said, with an 80+% accuracy. And this is the scary part. And he said, because of what we do, I can push that over 90%.
Yeah.
So that is, we really have to, and what you're saying, I think is critical to us becoming better at this. So, Coach Khan, I don't mean to put you on the spot, dude, but you are good with people all the time.
Okay. Well, it's fascinating to me.
His name was Coach Khan. Think about that.
And I spell it with a K on purpose, Ira.
Right. Because I find the irony in that. We were talking with Professor Pete earlier, and he was stressed out about a technology meeting. And I was like, does anybody else see the irony in the stress relief professor being stressed out? Anyways.
Yeah.
Well, it's like me teaching a time management class and showing up late. It's the same sort of thing. But that's the thing. What did we just do right now? We laughed. And we've lost our sense of humor with some of these things. Right. Well, let's go back to the basic thing. We've lost our ability to kind of laugh at the situation, to kind of look at the things and say, you know what, I'm acting ridiculously. When we shut everybody else out and we kind of get into our own little rooms, as you pointed out, Ira, and we consume the media that kind of reinforces the behavior that I already have there. When I'm in a situation when the only people I talk to are people that are agreeing with me, when the only colors I see are red or blue, it becomes a problem. And that's the thing, because it's like shutting off one of my eyes. I can only see out of one side of that. I'm not getting all the information that I need. We've lost our peripheral vision of things. We've lost our ability to step back. Now, again, you said it beautifully, Damon, in the sense that, you know what, for a period of time, we were on lockdown. For whatever reason, we were on lockdown, and that put us as a captive audience. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves consuming media much more than we normally would. We got a way out of our routines. And all of a sudden, these different platforms had a captive audience, and they were just feeding it, and it became like a feeding frenzy from that perspective. At the heart of it, what are we talking about? We're talking about dealing with fear. People are responding this way, not because it's a mask, not because it's something else, but rather it triggers a fear inside them. And we need to figure out what is it that's making this person scared, because anger is nothing more than fear manifesting itself differently in an aggressive way.
That's a great point. That is a great point. I never thought of it. You're absolutely right. It's as I catch myself when I'm afraid, I get angry. When you get sad, you get angry. That's a good point. Okay.
I mean, that's all it is. I mean, it's a manifestation of that. Now,
I want to say this too. I have seen sweet, I hate to use this term because I don't want to make anybody mad, but it is what it is. I've seen sweet old ladies, nothing but good intentions is what I mean here, right? It's not like, people go into this. A lot of people that I've seen supercharged one way or the other. They're very friendly people. They go in with the best of intentions. They're like, you know what? I just don't want to hang out with the negative crowd. And the opposite crowd to them, whatever side they're on, is the negative crowd. And that's the way it's portrayed in their media. They're skewed media because both of them, look, I listen to both sides. They both do the same thing to skew the other side, right? They're the devil. They're the evil ones. They're the ignorant ones. They're the uneducated ones, like most, anyways. They're the rednecks, if you will. But it's always the other side. So these people go in with good intentions because they're nice and they just want to avoid conflict. And then they get supercharged because they're avoiding the conflict. It's funny how it works. This con game.
Why are we so? Yeah, I mean, and it's happening too. People are. I mean, they consume that stuff like crazy. Why are we so? Why is that happening? Why are we so? Why do they get such good ratings and then just keep amping people up? I don't know. What's the fascination?
Well, it's the same reason why you can't turn away.
Some of it too. So more than I should probably.
The media is paid. I mean, honestly, they're paid with advertising. So if they can't hook you in, they don't make as much money. They're really good at psychology. We've got Professor Pete up now. We've got great guests, right? But they're really good at this. Look, I'm good at sales psychology. Trust me. That's how I make my money. And if I'm gonna make more sales by getting you to think a certain way, then my job in my shows and in my posts and everything else that I do is to get you to agree with me. Then I'm going to get you to agree with me.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, negative news sells, and it's 90%. If you ever watch a broadcast news, it's going to cover 90% on the negative, and that's because it's our human nature that we pay attention to it. It's sort of like being in traffic and there's some sort of accident on the side. Yeah. You don't want to see the blood and guts, but you always look.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Well, so remember this, in politics and everything, the mob mentality is not new. The Romans ruled with the mob mentality. It's always been popular. You get stuff out there, you spread it like wildfire, and that motivates people to make changes. Otherwise, we're more content to let things be if everything's good. So what's the precipice for change? We have to create dissatisfaction. So again, if they want to instill new policies, if they want to make change, and that's what they get paid to do, is politics.
Yeah,
the news used to be, used to watch, the car accident one, for example, too. It's always when the disasters are on. Yes, that's been going on forever. People feel better with their own circumstances by seeing how bad it can be, and it is fascinating. But it's the other part where it's really getting people angry, or putting blame on something else, and getting more and more amped up about stuff. That's this thing that's kind of new, and I don't really understand why people feel, it obviously works. I don't know what the attraction is that really gets people in there to crank those ratings up for those guys.
Well, it's an us against the world kind of mentality, and people want to feel like they're part of something, and if they relate to whatever this anger is, they're going to want to support it. And so it's a real bleeding thing. But I wanted to extend on what Con was saying too. I learned something several years ago that really took a lot of the charge out of it for me when I'm dealing with somebody who's got a completely polarizing attitude. And I wanted to pass this on. It's the fact that we all should respect the other person's perception of the world. Now, listen to that, perception of the world. We're not saying that they're right or wrong. It's that that's how they perceive what they think is correct. And we should respect that as they should respect us. Obviously, a lot of times that's not the case. But can we control the other person? We cannot. That's the other part of this that is really important, is we have to understand that anytime we're faced with a stressful situation, there are aspects of it that we can control. There are aspects of it that we can't control, but our human nature is to worry about or stress about all of those areas. And our mind share is all mixed and shared between the uncontrollable and the controllable. If we can say in our minds, okay, what is it that we can control? We can control our own response to the other person. You know, we were talking about masks earlier. We can't control the other person wearing a mask, but we can control our own mask, or 6 feet of social distancing, washing our hands, whatever it happens to be. If we focus on what we can control, then we can affect change around us. And when we feel like we have control, and when we feel like we can affect change, that's when our stress goes down. So I highly recommend thinking about it. Other person's perception of the world, respect it, and only worry about what you can control.
Well, and Ira, that's kind of what you did when you compared your story, like, going to the other side, flipping to the other channel, just to kind of
and Andrew,
bring it.
Andrew and I are talking about this. The Andrew Deutsch and I are talking about this in the comments, right? So I'm gonna tell you something. I took 6 nutrition classes in college. I could have actually minored in nutrition. And one of the things that I learned in my nutrition classes is that the data. First of all, I have a marketing degree, business marketing degree. I understand data better than most people do. Okay, so data can be manipulated in a million different ways.
Yeah.
Even who's paying to collect the data.
Yeah.
Who's collecting the data? Who's reporting the data? You want to say, well, it's a fact. I hate to tell you, but most facts aren't actually facts.
Yeah.
I agree that a fact is a fact. And what is the definition of a fact is a truth that will not change, right? The earth is not round. That's a fact. But you know what? You go back 1,400 years and that wasn't a fact. You would have been put to death for believing the earth is round. The earth was flat. We burned people at the stake who would say otherwise. But it didn't change the fact that the earth was round. You know what I mean? There's lots of quote unquote facts that aren't actually facts. They're just what we think are facts now. Yeah. So your facts versus my facts. And this is another thing that's changed. If you want to look at the political landscape and the evolution of our diatribical thought process, the collapse of civility, if you will. It used to be that facts were facts. We would watch the news, right? we watch the news and everybody would agree, okay, the news is unbiased and this is what it is. Now you have the CNN facts and you have the Fox News facts. I'm just picking on those two. It could be anybody, right? But you have different sets of facts. And one group will tell you, well, they're wrong because they're believing this fake news. And our president loves to use that term, so I'll pick on him for a second, right? Fake news, fake news, fake news. Well, there's plenty of people, millions of people who believe that, quote unquote, fake news. Is it fact or not? I don't disagree. A fact is a fact, but I'm just saying who decides what fact is the actual fact? Because there is no independent fact checkers. You know what I mean? A fact on Facebook can get you blocked, and on LinkedIn it can get you celebrated.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Jump in for a second here, Ira. Let me kind of take that thread and pick up from where Professor Pete left it off. But essentially, the way that you interpret those quote unquote facts is your perception. You're going to react to what you perceive as real.
No doubt about it.
I mean, if I perceive a situation as a friendly situation, I'm going to go in with. If I perceive a situation as a threatening situation, I'm going to go in very, very differently, and that shapes the way that I approach it. But the thing that I always take in mind, again, to reemphasize what Professor Pete in his wisdom shares with us. You look at that situation, you say, you know what, I can only control myself. I can't control what you believe, what you say, what you do. But my response to that is that your choices, your decision are limiting my options. If I don't feel comfortable in a certain situation, I'll remove myself from that situation. And that I can control.
Yeah.
You want to wear a mask, you don't want to wear a mask, depending on how I perceive that situation, I may look at that and say, you know what, I'm comfortable staying, I'm comfortable leaving.
Yeah.
We each have our option, and that's the only thing that we can control from that. Now, the way to kind of become more central into this piece and get away from those extremes is to start opening up your perceptions to the possibility that the earth is round, to the possibility that, you know what, the other side may have some good ideas, to the possibility that they're not the spawn of evil, that they might actually have some good people over there that are just trying to get by or help their family or help this country become better in their own way. If we can share openly our thoughts and listen to really understand versus listen to respond, because that's all we're doing right now. In the rare occasion that we actually shut up enough to listen to somebody else, we're only doing it so we can say, gotcha, that fact was wrong, or I have a different fact, or you are not, you're crazy.
Well, there's people like me out there. I listen to both sides all the time. I'm not listening for the gotcha. Now, I know lots of people who do that. I'm not saying, even if you said the majority of people, but I would be very cautious saying all people are just listening for the gotchas, because there are people. Look, it's improved my life. I can be friends with Republicans and Democrats at the same time. It's awesome, because I don't think any of them are evil. Now, I don't agree with everybody on anything. I'm probably the weirdest person in the room, because I have philosophies that go towards both parties, and I'm truly independent in my thinking. But a lot of people that I hang out with can't stand half the people that I like. Like, I can't go to a place and hang out with all my friends together because they can't stand each other. They'll fight.
So let's come back again a little bit about this. I think you've covered some really good things here, Con and Pete and Ira, and that is in. So if we're going to embrace the diversity in other people, and we're going to really be a positive force in this, and are better at doing it, what are some of the things that we should be trying to do, and how can we be better at this?
Well, one thing I would think, in addition to that, the whole thing of respecting the other's perception of the world, I know for me, in any networking situation, I typically lead or stay completely away from talking about politics or religion, because those, you're asking for it. You really are. And it's harder, if you're not well versed at respecting the other person's opinion, their perception, it's going to provoke a negative emotion. And so, not bringing those up. You can, there's so many other conversations you can have. And then learning how to deflect or not provoke if someone else says, he starts coming up with, oh my God, did you see that debate last night, or something like that? It's like, oh yeah, but then you ask another question to the person that is not political, let's say, for example. That is something that I found works really well, and it keeps the conversation civil, and you don't have this issue regardless of, race, religion, etc. It's just a conversation.
So it's if we're going to be in this situation, what you're saying is you want to get to know the person before you talk about anything like that, if that even comes up.
Exactly. You want to build rapport. Building rapport with somebody. If you have good rapport with somebody, that relationship is going to be able to withstand something that comes up better than if you just meet somebody for the first time and you go right into something confrontational.
Yeah,
that's true for.
Yeah, Troy Niehaus was commenting too about we're kind of off the track on diversity, which is we're embracing
We're not
diversity.
off track.
I don't think we are necessarily.
And that's why I want to,
Troy, but I think but how we interact with each other. This is kind of understanding different points of view. But
it's essential.
Can I bring it back for a second then to that topic? Because when I do diversity and inclusion workshops as a big part of what I offer, one of the places where I start when I have people sitting around the table is I have them do a simple exercise. I ask them to identify what 5 things do you have in common as a starting point. Mm-hmm. And then at the table, I said, okay, find now 5 things for each of you that nobody else has that are unique about you. And I can guarantee you every single time, it's a lot easier to find things in common than it is to find things that are different.
That's a great point.
And through this exercise, people uncover very, very quickly that, you know what, we have so many things in common that bring us together.
Yeah.
The things that make us unique are what makes us special and part of what creates that richness, that tapestry, that mosaic that is a high-performing team that allows us now to go back in and say, you know what? I love that Ira brings that fire in his belly. I love the calmness that Professor Pete brings to the table into our team. I love the fact that Damon's asking the tough questions. I love that Andrew is trying to make sure that everybody is included. Now, all of a sudden, I look at that situation around, and I have a diverse team because diversity comes in many shapes and sizes. Some of it is obvious. It's what we call a primary level of diversity, where it's the obvious things, the things that I can see, whether it's my gender, it's my skin color, my eye color, whatever it is, my race. These are things that are obvious that I can see. But there are so many things that are secondary and tertiary differences.
Well,
I mean, I look like the average middle-aged white guy, right? But I grew up in a situation where I'm first-generation immigrant here. I was born to first-generation immigrants. And I understand that immigrant story, and I understand how that works in many ways. I've been in environments where I'm the only one from my race, or I've operated, for example, in HR and training, which is a female-dominated world, being the only guy in there. I get it, what it's like to be in those kind of weird situations.
Let me jump in real quick. So the thing that you just talked about, the diversity, the issue right now, I think, part of what's adding to this is the fact that it's not always male versus female. It's not always white versus black. It's not always Democrat versus Republican. Hello? It's not always, Christian versus Muslim or whatever. It could be any of those things at any given moment. We talk about, diversity. I come from a Jewish family. So sometimes I am a minority in some ways. In other ways, I'm a white male and I'm in the majority and I'm the hated person in the room. You know what I mean? So part of diversity and inclusion is what is supercharged for you may not be the thing that's supercharged for the other person. And I think where the problems come in into what Professor Pete was talking about, he avoids religion and he avoids politics because those tend to be more supercharged areas than others. But I'm going to tell you, like even just going back to the mask or go to male versus female or Black Lives Matter or any of those things, any of those can be a supercharged. And when you get 2 supercharged people on the opposite sides, that's where the fight happens.
100%. And you know what I think that came out of this for me here that you just talked about, Con, is I wanted to talk about things that we can do, and we are. And it's really cool that you're bringing that up, Ira. The 2 supercharged people. What I've learned from this so far is that rather than jumping right in and going, well, I hate those masks, you talk to them about, hey, Ira, tell me something about yourself.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up? What's it? What do you like to do?
So this is going to help you in the diversity, but it's also going to help you in business.
Yeah.
Right. So that whole adage, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Like if you want to build your network, if you want to be better at whatever it is that you're doing in life, in business and your personal life, we should start there. I love what Con said, five things that you have in common. If you set out to find ways to get along, you will get along. And if you set out to find ways to disagree, you will disagree. Because as my dad said a million, billion, zillion times to me as a kid, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're absolutely right. So what mindset do you start the day out with? Are you looking for trouble? Because if you're looking for trouble, dude, you're going to find it.
Yeah.
If you're looking to get along, you can get along.
Yeah. You know,
even Mike O'Connor, former MMA guy, big dumb dummy, can get along with anybody he wants or can get in the ring and fight with anybody he wants. But he determines the outcome before it even starts in most cases. And you guys can verify the data and the science behind that if you'd like. But I'm telling you, your attitude makes all the difference.
That's a great
for better or worse.
Yeah, and it's a good point that you make, Ira. You know, for me and for most of the people that I've worked with, I re-emphasize gratitude as a beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And if we can start the day with something that we're grateful for, and, you know, like Con saying 5 things that that you have in common, but if you can come up with 5 things, either at the morning or in the evening, things that you're grateful for, it has an enormous effect on your attitude.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful. I mean, even if you're struggling in your work right now, if you to force yourself to come up with 5 things, you know, maybe it's paying the bills, it's giving me the health insurance, you know, these kind of things, that all of a sudden you start telling yourself these positives, you are much less likely to be looking for provocation with someone else.
Yeah. And it's right. You can find it if you're looking for it. You know that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I think that, you know, there's been a few things here that I think are pretty good, and we're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes, is that, you know, if you want to really try to be better at this, seek to understand, go into it with an attitude of, I want to understand and I want to embrace and learn, and really try to be better about this, and try to find common things before you even move into the others, and seek the commonality and then the understanding, and then maybe you can have a discussion about it, or at least you will understand it better. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will tell you a secret. If you really want to calm down, again, I suggest back off some of the media input that you just back off from the total media, right? Just not 100% walk away, but reduce the intake. But also, what Pete said, which I love, count your blessings, right? Another thing that we teach our children, to find things that you like in the people you're disagreeing with. So if you hate Nancy Pelosi because you're Republican, or you hate Donald Trump because you're liberal, right? Find something that you like in Nancy Pelosi, like give her a compliment, or find something you like in Trump. Right? You know, it will be tough for you to do, but at that mental exercise, if you start to do that, find things that you like, appreciate, respect in the opposite point of view, you will find that will help to open your mind too.
Yeah. Ira, to your point, though, to kind of wrap that part of it up, you cannot be as mad at somebody if you don't dehumanize them.
That's right.
And that's part of what, unless you bring it back to the point where you start seeing them as another human being with their own faults and strengths, then that takes away that edge. It takes away your permission to dehumanize and to treat people that way. But ultimately, I mean, when I work with high-end athletes, with high-performing athletes, I look at that and I say, you know what? All of the greats have it. What you think, you become. Then what you become, you put out there. What you put out there, you attract. And it's that kind of cycle that goes through that. That's where the power of the mind really comes into things. If I want to see bigotry, if I see isolation, if I see hate, I become that. I put that out there. I spread that more than I can spread coronavirus right now. That no mask is going to stop that, because that just goes out. If I put love and kindness and dignity out there, you know what? And a sense of wanting to listen to people, that comes back to me. That's the gratitude that Professor Pete talks about. If I think gratitude, I am grateful, I become positive, and that comes back to me out there. I find more things because my mind now is trained to zero in on the positives, not the negatives.
Yeah. So Ron, you wanted to come up. So what?
Yeah.
Ron,
I love the discussion.
He just wanted to show off the palm tree.
Yeah. That's a Zoom background. Don't worry about it.
Where are you?
Those the corona he's about to sip is computer generated.
All great points, good discussion. The only thing I'd like some folks to realize is that, you can seek to understand, but there are some perspectives that you will never understand, right? I am not a woman, so I will never know what it's like to carry another human being in my body, be pregnant, and I will never know some of the things that how women feel in the workplace, things like that. I just don't know it. I just know that their experience is different from mine. Same thing I shared with you guys before. And I'm going to share it again. As a black man in America, right? You guys picture this, right? I am driving my car, or my car has the driver's side window doesn't work. Now, what do you think about that? Driver's side window of your car doesn't work. You're like, okay, I got to get that fixed. For me, that could potentially put me in a life-threatening situation. You know what I'm saying? Right. So if I can't roll down the driver's side window of my car, I get pulled over by the cops. So now I can't roll down my window. What if I open my door? I'm going to get hurt, right? So I would literally take a day off of work and get that fixed immediately. So my experience through America is different from yours. Why? Because I've been yanked out of a car, thrown to the ground, and had a gun pulled on me for speeding, right? And I was speeding, and I wasn't going, like 6 miles an hour over the speed limit or something like that, right? So my journey through America is different than yours, right? So all I'd like you to realize is that my journey is different. Right. And there are some things that you're just not going to understand, but just appreciate the fact that mine's different. So for underrepresented groups, right, this is along the same topic, right? For people that are underrepresented, right, people who are underrepresented need allies. So in other words, by definition, underrepresentation means they're not always going to be around. So if there's a group of guys around and something's being said by women about women that isn't right, then somebody's got to stand up and go, that's not right, right? We're not going to tolerate that here. Same thing. There's a group of old white guys around and somebody says something about, somebody makes a derogatory term about Latin people, black people, whatever it may be, right? You have to be the one that turns around and says, no, that's not going to be tolerated, because those people, those groups need allies, right? They need allies and mentors. Right. So little bit of a different conversation as far as diversity, but we all embrace diversity for what it brings, right? And everybody said it, the diversity of thought, right? How do you solve a problem, right? You get as many diverse perspectives as possible, right? So that means Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, and and Mike,
and Mike,
and Mike. So again, realize that there's some perspectives that you're just not going to understand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I appreciate.
And I'm jealous.
And the topic and everyone's points here, they've all been really great. And thanks for bringing me up.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks for not drinking the margarita on camera. Appreciate that. So
yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's a little too early for that.
I like what Ron was saying, though. You never really understand it, the other perspective, or that experience, but he appreciates it, right? Or he does at least recognize that. That's a big thing, that I think we're losing a lot of.
I've talked to Ron on my show about that, and actually had Sabrina Smith on my show, and she's an African American woman. And she was talking about, just walking down the street, you see some police officers. And for me, I keep walking without even ever thinking about it. And she has to decide, do I turn around and go back? Do I cross the street, or do I keep going? Because she doesn't know how they're going to react.
Yeah.
I've never had to think about that. I think this is where seeking a diversity of friends. And again, I'll go back to, the media that we consume and only listening to what your proclivity is, or trying to open it up. It's the same thing to me, right? So if you will open up your sphere and allow more people in, that diversity, and have conversations that are not supercharged, but are just seeking to understand them in a whole variety of ways. Because it could be like, look, you may not know anybody else in your life who's been homeless before, but I have. So I can tell you about that experience and how awful it is from firsthand experience. Now, my homelessness was not for years. Like some people that you meet will be homeless for years. They're going to have a whole different experience than me. And anyways, it comes from what Khan said, treating people like people, and don't allow people to be dehumanized to just a political point or or a quality, a trait that they have, whether that be, you know, the people like me and Andrew who are gifted follically, or the people like Pete and I who are gifted aesthetically, right? We're beautiful men, you know, or whatever. The sensitive people in the room, which I'm clearly not one of them. You know what I mean? But open up your perspectives to folks.
Yeah.
Don't forget humor. If you want to know why I make as many jokes as I do, is because I'm trying to build rapport with you. Honestly, 100%. I am trying to build rapport with you. Now, you've all seen it. I can stand my ground. I can debate intellectually a point. And you've also hopefully seen me not get pissed off and use profanities just because you don't agree with me. Right? So try to maintain that civility and know when, like, be smart about it. Have a strategy.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to avoid these conversation topics for now because I know they're supercharged. I'm not going to get up on LinkedIn Live and start debating people on the validity of wearing a cloth mask. Now, I have cloth masks. I'm not saying there's no reason to ever wear them, but I wear this to appease other folks, not for my own safety. Like, basically, when you see me wearing a cloth mask, it's because I think I don't need a mask at that moment, but I'm appeasing the general public. When I think I need a mask, I'm wearing my N95.
So, Andrew, once again, we're getting to the time, so we can get back to the tables here shortly and let everyone. Hey, I want to thank everyone again for a good discussion, and you know, I've learned a lot, and I hope that at least people got to talk about some things that were important to them. You know, I like the idea of finding 5 things in common before you start talking about differences. I like the idea of the humor and seeking to understand and using gratitude so we can be, you know, even if you can only agree that you're grateful, both sides are grateful to be able to debate like this in a free nation or free situation. And, you know, you have to be the one that sets the, you know, that rises above. Because if you get into that looking for the conflict, it'll find you. And that's a few things that I got from today. But Andrew, thanks so much, guys and gals. And Jill, Jennifer had to leave, but we have Jill and we have Kathy in here, a new attendee. Go ahead, Andrew. And Ron's back.
Yeah.
Good.
Great. Pretty good wrap up there. Anyways, I think we're going back to the tables. You know, great conversation. I think that I didn't have any issue. I mean, I understood what this group of people is, that everybody here is interested in looking and understanding the other side, you know, and it gets charged and energized by that. That's, you know, it's that's why we're here and doing this, and it's great. And I think I learned something there too. Just Pete, some great points on how to, you know, bring it down and understand the other side. We're all Americans, you know, and you know, sometimes it just has to get worse before it gets better. But and I think that's kind of in the situation we're at. But we're recognizing we have a problem, and that's the next step, is we'll go forward. Anyways, thanks all.
All right.
Damon, shut it down.
We're shutting back the floor.